Hello everyone, good evening. Hope everyone are doing great. All right, so it's time for us to start with the session. My screen is visible, right? The VPC design practices. Was my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. All right, so yesterday we have started initiation for networking module and try to discuss about the basics and fundamentals of networking concepts and try to discuss about the various options that are available within the virtual private cloud. That is nothing but a VPC. Hope everyone got an understanding, and any doubts for the previous session which has to be discussed? Any doubts? Are we people able to understand the concepts what we have discussed for the networking? It doesn't see a response. Are we able to follow the class yesterday? Anyone? Okay, good. All right. So yesterday, what have we done? We have tried to create a project VPC that has been created automatically by supplying the values that has been given by us. Correct? So we have created a VPC by choosing a network, and under the main network, we try to divide those under 4 subnetworks, right? And then we have tried to launch a server with Linux and Windows within that network, which has helped us to try to access the public internet in the public subnet. So we did try to launch a public subnet server where it got an internet access, and we also launched the private server where we haven't gotten internet access. And there is one more thumb rule which we have to understand, that all the subnets under a single VPC, under the same virtual private cloud, they can communicate each other. Right? So we have able to test it out. So now what we are trying to do, we will be trying to create step-by-step approach on creating each and everything like subnets, route tables, internet gateways, so that we'll try to create manually rather than the automatic process. So let us try to do that. Okay. So before doing that, let us try to see some more theoretical aspects of the VPC before we are trying to design the VPC. Okay. So what are the VPC design best practices? Create one subnet per availability zone for each group of hosts that have a unique routing requirements. Okay. So it is trying to tell create one subnet, at least one subnet if you try to create a virtual private cloud. Divide your VPC network range even across all availability zones in a region. That means it is trying to tell that let us try to divide a VPC and try to divide that under subnets, like a different subnet, so that each subnet will get an equal range of IP addresses. So that's what it is trying to tell. Divide the network range evenly. Evenly means it should be properly well distributed, just to make ensure it has a proper routing protocols. Do not allocate all network address at once. We shouldn't be allocate all network address once because if you try to allocate network address, the main IP address at once, then later when you try to assign, it will try to show the IP addresses are not available. So instead, ensure that you reserve some addresses space for future use. Okay, just for a future purpose in case of any emergencies. Size your VPC CIDR and subnets to support significant growth for the expected workloads. Okay, ensure that your VPC network range does not overlap with your organizations or other private network ranges. So as I told you, the IP addresses should be unique. And if IP address assigned to one network cannot be assigned to another network because there will be an overlapping. So we just need to make sure this particular CIDR block, the network we are trying to choose, it shouldn't be overlapping. Okay, that is again the thing which is being trying to define here. And multiple accounts. What are the multiple accounts concept? Best suited for large organizations and organizations with multiple IT teams and medium-sized organizations that anticipate rapid growth. So it is trying to tell we could have a multiple AWS accounts to manage these VPCs. So it should be best suitable for large organizations or big level organizations with more IT teams. Okay. So medium-sized organizations, which is trying to have an rapid growth. So even that situations, this multiple accounts should be needed. That's what it is trying to tell. It is best suited for that. Why it is needed? It can be more challenging to manage access and standards in more complex organizations. So why it is we need a multiple accounts? For example, if during at the big organizations, we might need more networks to be configured, correct? So at that time, it's best suited for a multiple accounts. Multiple AWS accounts can be created. As we know that by default, each AWS account, for example, I'm trying to log into the AWS account, right? So each AWS account, as I can see here, each AWS can trying to have a maximum quota of 5 VPCs. The VPC which I've created, you can see here 3, right? So the default quota 5 VPCs per region per account. So per region, we'll be able to create 5 VPCs. So this again one thumb rule for the access. Okay. And those are the limitations for creating a VPC. So let us try to do that first. And then we'll be able to create the public subnets. Okay. So let us try to choose a VPC first. Let me try to open the thing. Just a moment. I'm just trying to open my console again. It got stuck, it seems. So what actually we are trying to do here, right now we are trying to create a manually VPC from our end rather than the automatic VPC process creation, because AWS is trying to provide manual VPC creation and automatic VPC creation. Okay. So all right. So you can see I'm going to create a VPC, and here Let us try to choose the network. Let me try to delete the previous one. Okay. It's not required now. I'm trying to clean up the process, what have been done yesterday. All right. I'll try to create a new VPC. So what is the first step we need to do? We need to create a VPC, right? Create VPC. And let us try to make it as a name with a first VPC here. Okay. 10.0.0.0/24. So I'm trying to go with the lowest number because so that I'll get a less number of IPs. The highest number of slash notation, the subnet was, you'll get a less number of IP addresses. Okay. And the lowest number of slash notation, you'll get a high number of IPs. So there is no point of me trying to choose maybe /8/16 because I'll get 65,000 and more than 16 lakhs IP addresses, right? It is not required for me. So I'm just going with the lowest number. So I'll try to choose 10.0.0 as the lowest number. Okay. 10.0.0.0/24. Next, I'm done with this. So I'll just try to my first VPC. Okay, I'm giving that as a name. Tenancy default, it is no IPv6 because we are still stick to the 4-bit IPv4, right? We have trying to use that IPv4 version and create VPC. Next step, this is done. So you can see it has been generated with a VPC ID, status is available, and DHCP host name, IPv4/24, everything is done. So once it is done, we just need to make sure this particular VPC had DNS resolutions enabled. You can see DNS resolution means when you try to launch any server under this network, it should give you a DNS name, right? The public DNS to have a communication of the internet. So it should be by default checked, but if it is not, you need to make sure it is checked. Okay. So I'm trying to mention that as a point. Enable DNS resolution. All right. Next, what is the next step? Creating a public subnet. Okay. So why is the public subnet is needed? As I told you, the public subnet is needed to have a communication over the internet so that any server launched under this public subnet will have an access over the internet. Got it? So the people who are trying to access here, they are going to hit the server which has been configured in the public server. You can see this is a EC2 server. This is a VPC, for example. This has been given, this public subnet has been divided. So the internet is going through internet gateway ID here. You can see the users are able to get the internet through internet gateway ID, and that will be connected to the public subnet. That's what this illustration is trying to give us. Okay. So let us try to create a public subnet first. Creating subnet, public subnet, and also we can try to create a private subnet as well. Okay. So what name we are trying to give? The name we are trying to give it as public subnet underscore VPC1. And I'm giving the name here as private subnet underscore VPC1. Got it? So now I'm trying to do a division for this main network. So I want to divide this main network. I want to create two networks more. So what I'll try to do, actually /24 is already occupied and it is trying to give us a 255 IP addresses, right? So out of this 255, I need to divide some more. So I'll go with a more number so that I'll get a less number of IPs, right? So I'll try to give this as 10.0.0 0.0/25. 25 means lesser than 24. So if I go with a 24, then I might get around 251 IP addresses. If I go with 225, I'll get less than 251 IP addresses. So I'm trying to utilize this as a /25. And the private subnet I want to divide with some other network, maybe 10.0.0 dot maybe 128/25. So this is starting from this particular range. Okay, .128. So I'm trying to divide this network as with the different ones. So the public server will be launched under the public subnet with this, within this range, and the private server will launch with this particular IP address as 0.128/25. Let us see how it is going to help us to create that. Okay. I'll go to the subnets here. Then I think it's not deleted. Create subnet. So here it is asking to select the VPC. Okay. So under which VPC I need to create these subnets? That is the thing. So under the my first VPC, I'm trying to add, this is the main network. I'm trying to divide this as a sub network. Okay. So I'll try to add this as public VPC1. I'll give the same name what has been given. And the name. This is the range I've tried to choose as a IPv4 CIDR block. Okay. I'm trying to subdivide that. Availability zone. Under which availability zone this subnet will result. You can try to select any of the availability zone within this Oregon region. It is asking us. So I'm just trying to click on no preference. If you want to select any specific data center, you can try to select this option. Okay. I'm trying to create the subnet. Okay. Okay. Someone had a question about DNS resolution versus DNS hostname. DNS resolution is something where the servers actually resolve the DNS hostname to their corresponding IP addresses. When you try to load this website over the internet, it will try to resolve that to the IP address. Correct? That is nothing but a DNS resolution. DNS hostname is nothing but a fully qualified domain name. Okay. So which is actually used to communicate over the internet. That is the difference between both of them. Okay. And my public subnet has been created. I'll go with the creation of the private subnet. Okay, the first step, second step is done. I'll go with the private subnet as well here. Private subnet. And the name which I need to give here is my first VPC. This is the main network. And I'll give the private subnet VPC1. So I created already the public subnet. Now I'm trying to create the private subnet. Okay. And what network I've tried to divide here? 10.0.0.128/25. It is kind of a random. Out of this main network, I'm trying to divide based on my own choice. Okay. Let us see how many IPs are available. I created this private subnet as well. If I try to actually select what are the IPs. VPC. You can see I've created private VPC1 and the public VPC1. Okay. Now here you can see inside the private VPC1, how many IP addresses are available? /25, 123 IP addresses are available from the /23. And from the public subnet, how many IP addresses are available? 123 IP addresses are available. Correct? So what is a main network? Main network has 251 IP addresses are available. Correct? So out of this 255 address, I'm trying to divide the subnetting concept with the help of, so that I'm generating around 246 IP address has been reserved because I'm trying to use it properly. That's what it is trying to tell in the PPT as well. Use it properly to divide the IP addresses evenly to the all the availability zones within that region. So I have been properly divided to this thing. So where this subnets has been launched under the US West 2A. Okay. So my second step is done as well. What is the next step? Now, for this public subnet, when you try to launch a server, we need a DNS hostname, public DNS to be enabled, and also the public IP address are required, correct? So I have to right click on this public subnet and click on edit subnet settings. You can see whenever you try to launch any server, it will auto assign the public IP address, auto assign the public IP address, right? So I need to select this option so that enable the auto assign IP settings automatically request a public IPv4 or IPv6 address for a new network interface for the subnet, so that it will try to get an internet based on the public IP address. So we are trying to mention that it needs an internet. So that's why I'm trying to enable the auto assign of public IP address whenever there are instances launched under this particular subnet. Okay, I'm clicking on save. Let us try to make a note of that. Enable auto assign public IPv4 address. Okay, this is also done. And the private subnet, it doesn't require internet, so I'm not trying to enable the auto assign public IP. Okay, so I'm trying to leave that as it is. Now, what is the next step? Route table creation. What is the need of a route table creations? I think I've just told yesterday. Can anyone confirm before I try to create that? What is the purpose of route table? Let's make that session interactive so that if I'll just try to feel that you people are getting through the concepts. I just told you about what is the purpose of route table. Anyone? Guess, anyone try to remember the yesterday class? What is the need of a route table? I told about the route table. Why route table is needed within the VPC? I told yesterday. Someone saying that to provide the path for the communication, and Sheetal is telling that, and Gayatri is telling for the traffic control, and Vipul is telling directing at particular. What is that particular? Yep. So all the answers seems to be so someone is trying to route data from one network from another efficiently. Actually studying to control the traffic has to be directed. Yes. So all of your answers actually that makes sense, because route table is something which is trying to show the direction. It is trying to have the route, the path which is trying to show up the path where the traffic has to be redirected. Correct? So that is the purpose of route table. So it is nothing but a virtual interface, the virtual router which has been created within the cloud, which actually can resemble the example for the typical router at our home as well. Okay. It actually shows the path to have the redirection where the traffic has to be directed. Correct? We have created VPC, we have enabled, try to create the public subnets. Now we need to decide how the traffic has to be controlled over these public subnets. Correct? So for that reason, we are trying to create the route table. I'm going to the route table here. So I'll create a route table. Now, what is a route table I need to give? Let us try to give that. RT route table underscore public underscore VPC1. Okay. Next, RT underscore private underscore VPC1. So I'm trying to create two route tables. One is for the public route subnet, one is for the private subnet. So I'm trying to mention VPC1 public route table, VPC1 private route table. Okay, let us try to give that just for easy understanding. I'm giving the name. So which VPC we need to select here? The first VPC we have created. Okay. And I've created the route table. What is the thing which I've created? RT public VPC1. I'll create one more. So these namings will help to sort and try to find easily when you're trying to navigate this VPC. I'm creating one more private VPC. Which VPC? My first VPC. Create route table. This is also done. Now I'll go here. So when I'm trying to search the route tables, VPC1, it will show me the VPC route tables which has been created by myself. Okay. So this has been created. Now I need to define inside these route tables under where the traffic has to be directed. Simple. Correct. So first I'll go there and you can see the route table is trying to have the name, the routes, subnet associations, and edge associations. We want to have in data center cloud level edge associations. We can try to do that. We doesn't have that. Route propagations. So it is nothing but a virtual private gateways. It is not required. And the tag, it's for the naming convention. We have already given that. So let us go to the routes. Now route, by default, if you create any route table here, by default, it will have a default route created for this particular VPC which has been created. So this might be a question for the certification as well. What is the default route that has been created under the default route table? So it will be a default route will be created with a VPC which has been given earlier 10.0.0/24. Even if you go here, the private route table, you will see a default route for the VPC. Okay, that default route will be created with the local that is active. That means the traffic is already by default allowed with the default route here. So I need to explicitly define here the another route. Okay, so this has been given here. And the subnet associations. What is the subnet associations? Under this route table public, which subnet you want to allow? So which subnet I need to allow here? Anyone can try to tell me. Public VPC route table I have created. Which subnet I need to create? I need to attach the public subnet which I have created earlier. You can see I'm attaching that. So that is 10.0.0/25. I'm attaching that. I'll click on save. Save associations. This is done. Subnet associations, it has been associated with a public subnet. Now I need to do the same thing for the private route table. Private route table, I'll go to the subnet. Which subnet I need to attach? The private route subnet. It is trying to define the traffic. That means this traffic has to go through this route table. I'm trying to define here. I'm trying to configure the details. So this is fine. So everything is good in terms of now. So I think I'm good with this. Okay. We'll try to have a note in the notepad as well. Attach the public subnet. Attach the private subnet. Okay, my subnet associations has been successfully completed. Next. The fourth step is internet access. We have created, virtually we have tried to create a network, divide the networks and route tables and everything. What is an options that will try to enable the internet access? I told that yesterday as well. What is the requirement for the internet access? Anyone can guess? Next step. What provides the internet access to the public subnet? Can anyone confirm? Anyone? Can anyone confirm? Someone is telling the internet ISP, and someone is telling NAT gateway. NAT gateway is a network address translation. That is a different concept. And ISP, of course, it provides internet access. That's true. But in terms of here, like to have that access provided here within that VPC, we need an internet, right? So ISP will try to directly link to the backend technology here in this VPC. So that will be provided with the help of a IGW. As I told you, that is internet gateway. You remember yesterday I told you about the internet gateway. This is the one which provides the internet access. Okay. So for that, I'll need to go to the internet gateway. I need to create one internet gateway here. Okay. So what I need to do, I'll go with the create internet gateway. IGW underscore VPC1. Okay. I'll create internet gateway. And then what it is trying to tell, create internet gateway and attach to the VPC. So I've created internet gateway, but I need to tell for which VPC this internet is required. So this is required for the main network to attach to the VPC. I'll go here, go to the actions. You can see the following internet gateway was created. You can now attach to a VPC to enable to the VPC to communicate over the internet. That's what it is trying to tell. So I'm trying to attach to the VPC. Which VPC? VPC is the my first VPC, attached internet gateway. Simple. So this has been attached. Now my IGW is also completed. I've created VPC, subnets, route tables, and internet gateway. Now everything is in place. So we have tried to do that everything with a manual task. So that will help us to understand the technicalities on what actually options, what each option will try to help us, and how this is going to make us try to configure a network, like individual network with the different subnets. So I've tried to create that. So what actually I can do now, I'll go with that instance creations. Let's see if that actually trying to give me a internet access for now. Okay. Now I try to do manually right now, correct? So we took time and we try to do all the steps manually. So this is what actually required for understanding purpose. Let's try to see. Nothing is running here. Click on launch instance. Public underscore VPC1, public server. You can tell it as public win server underscore VPC1. Okay. Now, which AMI I need to choose? Maybe I'll try to, it's a good testing price. I'll try to choose the Windows one because it will help us to test it quick. I try to choose the Windows machine and this is done. T2.micro, this is a free tier eligibility. I'm trying to launch the same server. And the key pair, which I had already by default, I'll try to see that. If you want to create a new key pair, then you can try to do here as well. And the network settings, I'll go with which VPC I've created just now, my first VPC, right? If you try to give up proper names for everything you do, it won't get confused. Because of multiple networks, I can easily try to select my first VPC and public server VPC1. So one means the first, right? So I can try to easily guess and try to configure that. It will help me to do that. So to have an access to the internet, which subnet I need to select? Any idea? Anyone? Under which subnet I need to launch a server so that I'll get an internet access to the server. Others, I doesn't see a response from others. Anyone? All right. Yes, it's a public subnet. So you can see the VPC owner availability zone US West 8. The public subnet, the range CIDR block is 10.0.0/25. Okay, I've clicked that. You can see by default, public IP has been automatically enabled because the same thing which I've done in the backend during the creation process. You can see that, right? During the public subnet, you can see enable auto and public IPv4 address as a valid. Yes. So it is the same thing. It has been given here. So I'll try to create launch. I think it takes time for 4 minutes for a server launch. Let's wait for that because I need to generate a password, right? So for password, it takes time for us to generate. Let us wait for some time. In running still. Let me try to connect. If it generate the password. I'll click on the get password. It has been generated the password. Let me copy them. Administrator. Okay. I'm trying to download that. I'm connected to that server. It says remote cannot connect to the remote computer for one of the reasons. Access to the server is not enabled. The remote computer is turned off. The remote network is not available. It's saying that public access is not yet granted. It has given the public IP address. I got this and the private IP address I got. So what is the reason that server I'm not able to connect? Any idea, anyone? The security groups also enabled 3389. So I'm trying to connect the RDP. The RDP port is 3389. That is already enabled. But why I'm not able to connect? Can anyone guess? Any idea, anyone? Anyone who guess why we are not able to connect? Yesterday we are able to connect, right? So I haven't got public IPv4 DNS as well. Can you see this? So the reason it is not coming because if I go to the VPC section here, I've created subnets, route tables, and internet gateways, correct? But I did not confirm this internet gateway has been attached to the VPC, but I did not confirm where this internet gateway traffic has to flow. I did not tell that this internet gateway has to pass on through the public subnet, right? How that's this VPC and the internet gateway know that traffic has to go to the public server because the public server I'm launching the server. So I need to define the rule. So what is the purpose of route table? I need to define the traffic, which I'm missing, correct? So I'll go to the VPC one, that is route table public VPC one. So here I need to define like where the traffic has to flow. So I'll not to go on edit routes. I'll click on add route. You can try to tell 0.0.0. And here it means any IP address can communicate over the public route table over the public subnet with the help of an internet gateway. This is the internet gateway. You will try to show, you can see it is popping up. Any IP address, like my local system has a different, you have a different IP address. Anyone from any world, they can try to log into any server inside this public subnet with the help of IGW. I'm trying to define the route. This is nothing but a route. I'm trying to click on the route here. I'm trying to add. I'll click on the save changes. Okay. This was missing earlier. So this is done and this is also done. Correct. I am defining the route as well. This is also done. So that is a problem. Actually, it has been not actually giving us access. Let us try to see if reboot works. I have given the router actually from the route table. Let me try to see. Someone had an issue when trying to do the same thing. Actually, Sheetal, you can try to have a route table added, route added to that public route table if you want to try. Let's see if I try to reboot, it will enable the public IPv4 DNS or not. I'm hoping it won't, because during the early stage, I need to enable that internet gateway. Otherwise, it won't get. Let me try. If that doesn't work, I need to launch a new server. So still it did not generate the public IPv4 address. You can see. So while configuration of earlier stage during the route before launching the server, this has to be done. So what I'll try to do, I'll try to launch a new server. Let me see. See. Everything is done. Auto assign public IP. This is done. And auto assign DNS IP. It is also should be done. This is also done. DNS resolution is there. Okay. So I'll launch a new server. Public. Because I've added the internet gateway route, right? I'm trying to launch that. VPC1. All Windows. I'm selecting the Microsoft Windows operating system. T2.micro and the key pair should be the same. And the network which I'm trying to launch is under the my first VPC. And the public subnet VPC1. Enable. Everything is done. Let me try to launch. It is initializing. It's still not coming up. Maybe some setting is missing from this. Maybe it's EDLs. Oh, I did not enable this DNS hostname, right? This is the problem actually. So let us try to have this edition of DNS hostname. It is trying to have a resolution. Earlier, there was no setting like this. During my early batch, maybe it has been come up. Enable DNS resolution, enable DNS host names. Let me try to do that. We'll click on save. You need to enable this both DNS options here. That is the problem. It is stopping to create a public V for DNS. Okay. Let me try to see this. See, it got the public DNS address here, right? In the same way here as well. Now see, the public DNS has come up. If anyone is trying to do that, please try to configure that public DNS resolution and the hostname. Okay. So public resolution, it will try to resolve DNS over the public internet. It will try to give you the host name for that particular server. Okay, launched under that particular VPC. These two options should be enabled. So once I try to do that, it has been launched. Okay, it has been given for me. Now what I'll try to do, what is the server I tried to download before? Let me connect to this again. This one, RDP client, the password. Copy this, download my control. I'm trying to mention as new, just to have a difference. Now I'll try to connect to the server. See, I'm able to get the administrator prompt. I'll try to paste the password. I'll click on OK. It is giving me confirmation. So to connect the server. So I should be able to launch the server now. So to have that enable the DNS, you need to click on the My First VPC, edit VPC settings, and then try to enable the enable DNS resolution and enable DNS hostname. Okay. These two options should be enabled while creations of the VPC by default. Otherwise, you won't get the public DNS name to launch the server. I think someone had a question for this. So I think I have successfully launched the public VPC. Okay. Where I should get the internet access. Okay, I'm able to launch the server. Let me check if I got internet access. Now you can see this particular server, it got public address for the internet communication, private address for internal, this for the public access, and private IP address for the internal communication, the public DNS, so that this particular DNS will be loaded over the internet. If you try to load this, this should be helpful for the internet access actually. So this is actually available for the public access over the internet. If you try to configure any website under this, this will be the common DNS name if you try to install any application. Okay. So it is trying to tell, do you want to allow PC to discoverable by other devices? Would you like to have this to the network? I'll click on yes, let it load. I'll open the command prompt. Let me ping google.com. You can see I'm getting a response from the ping. Ping means it was able to communicate the google.com from this server. The ping is, it's a tool, it's a command from the CMD tool where we can try to have check the communications if there is an internet connectivity is active or not. So this is trying to give me a successful message. Okay. Now you can see the private IP address we got from the public subnet, right? 10.0.0.20, and the public IP address, it has been randomly given by the ISP provider, 35.89, 184.136 with the help of this particular internet gateway. With the internet gateway help, we are trying to get the public access. So successfully, I'm able to launch the server. And even you can try to copy any local files from your computer as well. Even that should help. For example, if I try to, it's my system, right? I'll copy this and I'll try to paste from a local system to the server. It will get copied. So the data can be moved from local access. So it means it has been accessed for the internet. It is publicly available. So I'm able to copy files, folders, and any data from my local network as well. Okay, that's how it is going to help. So this is all about the VPC creations and the step-by-step approach on how to have that access. Okay. Was this topic clear for you, everyone? You got an understand, right? How you can try to manually create infrastructure within the cloud with the help of a networking concept and try to launch a server, like slowly step-by-step approach. Earlier, we try to learn with the basics, try to learn about the server creation and the storage. And now we are trying to launch a network. And within that network, we are trying to create a servers as well. That's how the pretty quick enough that cloud environment being trying to provide us a feasible technology and the options. Any doubts on VPC creation? This is again one of the main important topic in the module that should really helpful. Without the concept of this understanding of IP address and the understanding of subnets and the route tables and why we need a DNS, without these topics, you won't be able to understand what actually is happening when we are trying to design the infrastructure within the AWS cloud. Any doubts? Are we clear? It doesn't see a response from others. You are able to understand? All right. So this is not required, though. I'll try to terminate this one. So this is about the VPC creations, as we have seen. So what actually you can see, the directing traffic between VPC resources. Route tables are required to direct traffic between VPC resources. That's what we try to do, correct? Each VPC has a main default route table. As I told you, it has a main default route that is created with a local VPC route. You can see this 10.0.0 we have done before, correct? That is what it is trying to show. All subnets must be associated with the route table. Yes, that's what we have tried to do. We have tried to associate private route table to the private subnet, public route table to the public subnet, correct? Now, you can create custom route tables. That's what we did. By default, when a VPC is created, any VPC, by default, a default route table is created. So we can try to create custom route tables based on the needs and the project requirements. Right now, I try to create the custom route tables with the private route table name and the public route table name, correct? We have created the custom names. Best practice, use custom route tables for each subnet. That's what we did, correct? So these are the custom route tables which we are trying to do that. That's what I did now, okay? So it is trying to tell the same scenario what we have done. So there is another concept called NAT gateways. What is that NAT gateway? Connecting private subnets to the internet. What happens with the help of a NAT gateway? Enable instances in a private subnet to initiate outbound traffic to the internet or other AWS services. And prevent private instances from receiving inbound connection requests from the internet. For example, there is a situations. Okay. So I have created a VPC with this particular main VPC. And this is the private public subnet. This is a private subnet. So what happens? This public subnet has an access to the internet. Okay. Now, what is the need for the public subnet? The public subnet is loaded with the web servers, app servers, and application servers, right? These are like a web and app servers. And this private subnet is nothing but a internal servers, because I want to maintain these as a secure so that no one can access and no internet access should be there. Internal servers. So these internal servers might be kind of a database servers. You know, right? Database servers, we doesn't give access because due to security concerns. Database servers and network related proxy servers and these kind of things. So I can try to tell as a proxy maybe. So what happens? We doesn't give access to the internet gateway to the private gate, correct? But the public subnet will have an access to the internet gateway so that it will get the internet access and will try to do. So what happens actually, just to understand the concept, if we have an access to these servers or the public subnet, this public servers will get an internet access for to download anything from the internet, and the software will be up to date. They'll receive the updates, the patchings. For example, at your home purpose, your local computers need internet access for downloading the Microsoft patches and the upgrades and the downloads and everything has to be done. Correct. So Microsoft used to release the security patch updates every month. So during that time, even DB servers need the patch updates. The network server needs patch updates. The proxy internal servers all needs and patchings and the updates and the maintenance. Correct. So we'll try to call that as a maintenance and the patchings and everything. You people are aware, right? You might get a system updates at your desktop, like your Windows system software is getting to update, please reboot, and the Microsoft is trying to send you the notifications. So in the same way, private subnet also needed the updates, like security updates. To receive the updates from the internet, it needs an internet connection, but we are not giving internet connection because of the security reasons. Okay, because it might be a threat for the internal servers. Someone might have a hacking that and try to have the data to be displayed outside of the public internet. So that's why it doesn't go to give an internet access. So what is the resolution now? So what actually we are trying to give here, we have been come up with a technology that is nothing but a network gateway, NAT gateway. That is nothing but a network address translations. So what actually it is trying to do, it is trying to mask the private IP address in the private subnet, and it is trying to communicate over the internet gateway here with a public IP address. So whenever the communication is going from the private subnet, it is trying to secretly hide the private subnet IP addresses over the private subnet, and it is trying to show the over the public internet that this is the private subnet as well, so that no one will be able to catch what is the IP address for the private subnet, so that no one will be knowing that where the connection is coming from. So that's when the NAT gateway comes in. NAT gateway is something like conversion of private IP address to the public IP address over the NAT gateway, and so that it will get an internet access as well. So what actually by the definition you can see, enable instances in a private subnet to initiate outbound traffic. Outbound traffic means going the internet access traffic to the internet or other AWS services. So that is the concept. What actually is the benefit? Prevent private instances from receiving inbound connection. Inbound means no one can try to hit any communication to this private subnet, but private subnet, the servers will get internet access and these can go outside of the internet gateway, so that this particular private IP addresses will be masked. It will be hidden. Prevent private instances from receiving inbound connection requests from the internet. That's what the concept means. It is kind of one kind of an interesting topic where it will try to have the creations of NAT gateways, route tables, and the local targets and everything. So it will be taught very in deep when we are trying to actually going with a full-fledged course batch structure, okay, within the ExcelR. When we are trying to come up with the classes, you'll be able to understand more on this when you are trying to do a lab session, okay. But I just want to make sure you can get an idea on theoretical aspect as well. Everyone are clear with the NAT gateway, right? Understanding what is the purpose of having a NAT gateway. Is it clear, the concept? Was concept is clear for everyone? NAT gateway, enabling the private subnet internet access over the public internet without the display of this private IP addresses to the outside the world. Okay, that is the concept for the NAT gateway. Clear? Any doubts on NAT gateway? Okay, we'll have a more interesting sessions maybe coming up and covering this NAT gateways when we are trying to have a full-fledged course within this ExcelR. Okay. So it had some kind of a project we will be trying to do. The same way we try to create a VPC, right? In the same way, we'll try to do a NAT level configuration as well. We'll jump into the next one. Someone had a doubt on NAT gateway again. So simply NAT gateway is nothing but it's kind of a network address translation. Okay. We can use NAT gateway so that the servers in a private subnet, they can connect to the services outside of your VPC. Okay. So what actually happens, this public subnet is getting in inbound and outbound connections. Like you are trying to go to the internet from local system, I can try to connect the servers inside the public subnet, and to the servers, I can try to get an internet access, and someone is trying to send out messages, patches, and the pushes and everything, because I have explicitly given internet access to the public servers here, the public subnet. Correct? Because I need internet access to the public server, because customers can try to hit the servers. I can hit the servers. If I try to provide this IP address to you, even you can try to hit the servers. But why we are actually having the private subnet? To make sure nothing and no one can try to access my servers inside the private subnet, because these are very secure and internal servers like a database, and the data and the security data and the compliance and everything will be coming into the private servers. But these private servers need an access to the internet. Why? Because of patch updates, security updates from the Microsoft, and for downloading the files, like important files for the software files from the internet. So I need external internet access, but not the incoming internet access. Right? No one should access my servers inside the private due to the security reasons, but I need internet access. But how it is possible? I cannot attach the internet gateway to the private subnet, because internet gateway is a concept where it will try to give full inbound and outbound internet access. But to have restriction of inbound connection, I need to have only outbound connection. Then this NAT gateway comes into picture. When we try to attach the NAT gateway to the private subnet, what happens here? It will try to hide the private IP addresses. It will try to hide the private IP address like 10.0.20.0, and that convert that into public IP address over the internet, so that anyone who is trying to see that, they'll try to see it. It will be assuming that it is a public subnet only outside of the world. Okay. But internally, this NAT gateway is trying to mask the private IP address for the security reasons, so that no one will be able to access this private subnet. So that is the concept for the NAT gateway. Okay. So we have also seen a concept of security groups. You remember, right? While we are trying to configure the security groups, like a ports for Linux, what is a port? SSH is a requirement for when we are trying to execute the commands to the command line interface. SSH port number is 22. For connecting a Windows server, RDP port. What is RDP port? 369. Whenever we are trying to access any website over the public internet, it is trying to go with a HTTP, HTTPS ports. So HTTP port is 80, HTTPS port is 443. For the Windows server, what is the port? 369. What is the port? It has been given RDP. RDP is nothing but a remote desktop protocol. For connecting any Windows server, we need RDP port to be enabled, that is 369. RDP full form is remote desktop protocol. Okay. So all the ports information will be actually managed in the security groups here. You can see, you can try to create different security groups. You can try to add different ports can be added based on the project requirements. You can see edit inbound rules. Inbound rules, whatever the inbound connections are coming in. These are all the ports that can be enabled. SQL port, RDP port, POP3, SMTS, simple mail transfer protocol, SMB port, HTTPS, LDAP, local, Active Directory port, IMAP, POP3. These are the different DNS, UDP, TCP, UDP. This DNS ports will be coming under the transport layer. You remember OSI model I explained, right? This is the DNS, SMTP, simple mail transfer protocol. SSH port is for Linux server access. All traffic means all this traffic will be allowed to this particular server. You can try to. So all traffic is a risky one, because all the ports will be open and there might be an issue with someone trying to access your systems as well. So we'll try to enable based on the requirement and the need. If I try to actually configure any application inside this server, then I can try to enable HTTP or HTTPS because I want to load this URL over the public internet. So that's how it is helpful. Okay. So a security group acts as a virtual firewall for your EC2 instances to control incoming and outgoing traffic. Inbound rules control the incoming traffic to your instances, and outbound rules control the outgoing traffic from your instance. So incoming traffic, inbound rules means the traffic which is coming from over the internet, that is incoming traffic. Outbound rule is nothing but whatever the traffic which is going from your server to outside the internet, outside your public server over the internet, that is nothing but an outbound rule. Okay, this is about the security groups. So default security groups, what happens? It will try to block all the incoming inbound traffic. So allow all outbound traffic. All traffic means it will try to allow all the outbound traffic. So I told you, right, about the all traffic enable here. In this section here, I try to enable all traffic. So that will try to enable all traffic from outbound world as well. So that's what it means. It has a different thing. This one, all traffic. And custom security groups. You can see if you want to enable HTTP, TCP protocol 80 anywhere, allow web access. Any public, over the public internet, if you try to enable the application level, HTTP level, like we have practiced, right? Launching a test Apache website. So at that time, we need to enable the 80 port. That's what it is trying to tell. You can try to do a custom security group settings. Okay. And in the similar way, network ACLs also is a concept where it is coming into picture here. You can see this. If I go back to the VP sections, there is an option called network ACLs. So these security groups are actually managed at the server level, that instance level. Network ACLs are actually managed under the network level. While creation of VPC, you can try to by default allow the traffic, allow the ports, and by default you can try to block the ports, like deny the ports. That's what it is trying to tell. It acts at the subnet level. You can see this. Security groups actually acts at the server level. ACLs will act as a network level. It allows all inbound and outbound traffic by default. Or it's kind of a stateless firewalls that require explicit rules for both inbound and outbound traffic. It means by default, all traffic will be allowed. So you need to block that based on the requirement and the need. You need to create an explicit rules. It will have allow and deny rule. Okay. It is also one interview questions or kind of a certificate question as well. Difference between security groups and network ACLs. Security groups are configured under server level. Network ACLs are configured under network level. Okay. And these are kind of you can see custom network access list configurations. Like, while configurations of VPC itself, I'm trying to have a rule created. SSH by default allow. And by default, all traffic I try to deny. Okay. Whenever I'm trying to create inbound traffic, I'm trying to tell SSH, all the Linux machines can access with the SSH port by default allow. For outbound, what I'm trying to do? Custom TCP. So my local machine IP address, I'm trying to click on allow, and other IP addresses are completely denied. Allow delay rules will be followed under the network ACLs. This is one kind of a concept. Okay. And this is about the creation of subnet. To create a public subnet to allow communication between instances in your VPC and the internet, you must attach internet gateway. We have done that. We have created a route table, and we have tried to make sure the public IP address is available. Make sure that security groups are also available. We have done all the steps just before. Okay. And there is concept for the VPC peering. Let us try to understand. Okay. So we'll try to do a lab session for this as well. What is VPC peering? So connecting VPC in AWS with the help of a VPC peering. VPC peering is a concept where it is kind of a virtual private cloud, and it is logically isolated from other virtual networks in the AWS cloud. Okay. So it is kind of a network connection between two VPCs that enable you to route the traffic. For example, let me show you one thing. For example, what I did here. Okay, so these are kind of a two VPCs. For example, I'm trying to show you now diagrammatic way, so that we'll try to do a lab session as well. My first VPC. Okay, this is one VPC, and this is VPC. And where we have created the my first VPC? Does anyone remember under which VPC, I mean, region we have created the VPC just now? Anyone can confirm? Which region I've created the VPC? Anyone guess? The region which I've created just now, like all the subnets and the practice and everything we have done, right? This particular VPC creation. Where I've created? I think it should be done in the Oregon region, right? So I've created the VPC here, correct? Oregon region I've created. And I've created the subnets. I try to launch the servers. What I've created, I try to launch the multiple servers here. So I'm trying to mention these are kind of a servers, okay? So what actually I've did here, I've tried to create two subnets, right? What is that? Public subnet and the private subnet, correct? So these are kind of an internal servers. These are kind of an application servers, correct? So I try to launch a server as well. This is kind of an app server, web server. This is also kind of a web server. So I'm trying to preserve database server. It is kind of an internal proxy server. Some kind of an internal server. So I've created a virtual private cloud at which region? Oregon region, correct? So what I'm trying to do, I can try to tell maybe in this way. The purpose of creating this particular servers and the network so that I installed Apache application into this web servers, and the people who are trying to access this Apache web applications, they are trying to store the data as well, right? Whatever the data which has been created and everything that will be stored, correct? So I'm trying to connect. So this has been accessing through the internet gateway, and the people are getting an access so that they can try to. So they are trying to access some kind of a web application. www.testapp.com. It's kind of an e-commerce site. I've tried to deploy the Apache web applications. And this particular environment has been, this application has been launched, and this has been connected over these servers so that people who try to hit these servers, they'll get an internet access and they can try to use the application, and they can try to do that all the stuff, whatever it is needed. Okay. Testapplication.com is there. So it is used in the Oregon region. So what actually happened, the same company. Okay. For example, I try to launch my network. I launched the website. The same company I have launched in the Oregon region, correct? So I have successfully, people are using it. Now I want to expand my business. So I want to deploy the same test applications, and I want to have this available into a different country as well. It's kind of a India, I mean, Mumbai region. So what I'll try to do, I want to create one more data center, I mean, VPC inside another data center in the region that is kind of a Mumbai region. Okay. What I'll try to do, in the Mumbai region as well. Why it is required? Because I want to use the same applications. So as it is the same company, as we know, right? The servers inside the public subnet and the private subnet, all the subnets inside a VPC can communicate each other or not. Can anyone confirm? Can the communication will be happening between the subnets inside a single VPC? Yes or no? The communication will happen or not here within the VPC? What is the website actually? What do we have choose here? 10.0.0.0/24, right? Yes. So all the communication between these two subnets will happen within the VPC. It is possible, yes, because as I told you, the thumb rule, the subnets inside a single VPC can communicate each other because all these subnets belong to the same network. Now, the person, the company which the testapp.com who want to expand their business, want to deploy in another country so that that market can be expanded. Now, what actually they had a requirement? They also having a different network. Let me try to take a different network here. What network is that? Let me try to show you. So they want to deploy with a, I have chosen 10.0.0/24, right? Here, they want to choose the network as maybe 11.11.0.0.0/24. Okay. And they also want to have a same public subnet and the private server and the same kind of a setup. They want to do the same exact thing. So what actually they try to do? They try to do as well here as well. They try to deploy one public subnet, one the private subnet, the same setup. Everything should be same. So they'll try to have this app servers, web servers, and everything. Okay. And these servers will communicate each other because they are belonging from the same subnet, right? Same VPC. They'll have a connection, internal connection now. Now, as we know, one network cannot communicate to another network because you are actually, maybe you people are there in the Zoom. You are working in your network at your home. So I'm working at my home. I have a different network. So this is my network and this is your network. So do you think that our networks can communicate each other? It cannot be because you're belonging from a different network. I'm belonging from a different network, correct? So two networks outside the internet, they cannot communicate each other because this is a different network, this is a different network. But subnetworks inside the VPC can communicate each other. So the reason these two networks cannot interact each other because they cannot communicate each other because due to the security reasons and because of the IP address and the network differences. So there is no connection required. The connection cannot be established. That's the main thing, right? That is a general logic. I cannot access the computer at your home until you give me an access. So you cannot give me an access and control all the network from here. And the data cannot be transferred to your network, correct? Because by default, two networks cannot be communicated each other. But now there is a problem here because my company, I'm trying to successfully run in Oregon region. I want to expand my business in another region. Now, this Mumbai region want to have an access to all the data because this is my parent company. This is a sub company. So I want to have a connection established. How it is possible? Okay. So how it is possible to have an access to these two networks because I want to have access to all this data. This Oregon region network want to have an access to the Mumbai and Mumbai want to have an access to the Oregon region. How it is possible? So the reason it is required during the scenarios where companies want to deploy different infrastructure into different regions, the two different networks can communicate each other. Okay. That can be possible only with the help of VPC peering concept. Okay. So that's when the VPC can be coming into picture. So what happens with the help of a VPC? What happens? The communication between two VPCs can be possible when we try to have that access that has been given within the cloud environment. Okay. So how that is possible here? That is what it is trying to do. We can try to do that lab thing as well. Okay. When I'm trying to go to the session over here, you can see isolating some of your workload is generally a good practice. However, you might need to transfer data between two or more VPCs. That's what it is trying to do. Okay. So what is VPC peering? One-to-one networking connection between two VPCs. No gateways, no VPN connections. Like if I want to access your computer home network, how it is possible? With the help of a TeamViewer or kind of a Zoom sessions, VPN connections, and the separate network appliances we do, right? By default in the network level, how it is configured with the help of VPC peering, that technology is possible. It is highly available connections, no single point of failure because we are trying to define in the network level. Or bandwidth bottleneck, traffic always stays on the global AWS backbone. So the traffic will be completely managed by AWS network itself. You can see this is VPC1, this is VPC2. I'm establishing the peering connection. So now connection is made between these two VPCs. Okay. What are the VPC peering connection limitations? Use private IP addresses. It can be established between different AWS accounts. We can try to actually have a private IP address configuration as well. It can be established between different AWS accounts. Like you can try to connect with a different AWS account. So it cannot have overlapping CIDR blocks. For example, as I told you here in the diagram, if you try to use 10.0.0/24 network here, you cannot use the same network in the another region. You need to use the different network. If it is 10.0.0, you need to use here as 11.0.0. Okay, that's what it is trying to tell. It cannot have an overlapping connection. Can have only one VPC peering resource between any two VPCs. So between two VPCs, only one VPC peering can be configured. Only one VPC. It cannot have a multiple VPC peering. That is one limitation. Do not support transistor peering relationship. Transistor peering means if I'm trying to establish a connection between VPC1 to VPC2, I need to establish a connection 1 to VPC3. So you need to establish a connection between 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 1. So 3 VPC peering connection has to be deployed. It doesn't mean that if you try to left VPC1 and VPC2, it won't work. You need to configure connection between two VPCs. Like how many VPCs are there? You can try to do an individual VPC connection between 1 and 2. So that's what it is trying to tell, transistor peering relationship. Okay. These are kind of a limitations. So what actually we can do, we'll try to do a sample scenario here. So actually I've created the same thing, right? Like I've created one VPC in the Oregon region. I'll try to create the same VPC in the, like one more VPC maybe. Within the same account, I'll try to create one more VPC as per the diagram. Let us see how it is going to work. I'll try to mention it as a second VPC. I'll give it as a different network. What is the network which I've choose here? 11.0.0/24. I'll try to choose as 11.0.0/24. And it will give as a 11.0.0, 11.0.128. And I'll replace with this VPC2. Okay. We'll try to do a lab session, how it will work. I'll try to create two route tables, VPC2 and VPC2. And that's it. We can go ahead and create that. Okay. And then we'll try to launch a server over there. So I'll go to the console. We'll try to test the VPC peering connection, how it works. I'll go to VPC here. My second VPC. What is the network which I've tried to choose? 11 dot. Okay. I'm creating a VPC, one more VPC, so that I want to establish a connection between VPC1 and VPC2. By default, there is no connection between VPC1 and VPC2. I'm trying to establish a connection here. My VPC is created. What is the next step I need to do? I need to enable the DNS resolution here, right? I'll go to the settings and enable DNS resolution, enable DNS no hostname. This is a mandate thing. We have to do it. Now I'll go to the subnets. Subnets, I have to create two subnets, right? Private and the public subnet. So I'll try to go with my second VPC. And what is the name I can try to give? Just want to, doesn't have a confusion. Public subnet underscore VPC2, right? And this is an IP address I have given for the public subnet. Okay. I've tried to launch this 11.0.0/25. I'm trying to create exact replica of VPC2 here. I'm creating a new VPC. I'm creating a private subnet again. My second VPC. Private subnet underscore VPC2. And what is the range I've given? 11.0.128/25. I'm creating that. So VPCs are ready. So then what is my next step? So if I try to VPC2, so these two VPCs are created. Next step is to create route tables. Now What is the next step here? RT underscore VPC and my second VPC. I've created a route table for the public. This is done. And by default, you can see local route has been added to the 11.0 main network. I'll attach the public subnet here. Public subnet underscore VPC2. Save associations. Because I've created the public route table here. This is done. Now I'll create one more route table that is nothing but a private route table. Okay. Create route table. My second VPC. The same thing exactly I'm doing how we try to do for the first VPC creation. Even here I'm trying to add the private route table. The second private route table, it is also added. Now what is the next step? We are trying to do internet gateway. Already there is a IGW underscore VPC1, right? I'll try to create IGW underscore VPC2. I'll create this, and which VPC I need to attach this IGW VPC2? I need to attach to the second VPC. My second VPC, everything is done. And one more thing I need to do was, I need to attach this internet gateway to the public subnet route table. Where was that? VPC2. This is a public subnet VPC2. And the routes. Here I need to allow the 0.0. rule so that I'll get internet access to the servers inside the public subnet 2. Internet gateway, it is displaying, right? Why it is not giving? Maybe it is in creation process. Let's wait. Is it created? IGW VPC2, this is good. Route tables. VPC2. Public routes. Edit route. 0.0.0 and internet gateway VPC2. This is done. Now everything is done. So here I've created two VPCs. For example, assume this is Oregon region. This is kind of a Mumbai region. I'm not going with a Mumbai region though, but I'm trying to create same VPC in the same region just to make sure doesn't want to get a conflict. So these two VPCs can be created within the same AWS account, different regions, or different AWS account. There are three options. Okay. So as per the snippet we are trying to understand here, I'm trying to create one VPC in the Oregon, one VPC in the different here, creating two VPCs. And as by default, there is no communication between these two VPCs. So with the help of VPC peering, I'm trying to establish the connection. Let us try to do that. So now I'll go to the VPC peering here. Where was the VPC peering? It should be in the here. I'll connect the VPC peering. You can see this VPC peering connection here. Okay. This is the VPC peering connection. Here, create peering connection. Now I'm trying to attach that. Name. ExcelR peer. So it is telling, select a local VPC to peer with. What is the requester VPC? I want to have a connection established between this first VPC to the second VPC. So I need to select the first VPC as the requester, right? My first VPC. This is done. 10.0.0/24 is the first VPC. Now to which VPC you want to have the connection? The second VPC. That is either the second VPC can be in the Mumbai region, or it can be in the same region, or it can be in the different AWS account. So I'm trying to establish a connection between 10.0 to 11.0. It has been associated. You can see I'm trying to define that. What are the different options to peer account? You can try to mention with the my account or different AWS account or a different region. There are three different possibilities. I'm trying to create a peering connection. So I'm trying to define the VPC peering connection with the help of a VPC peering option over here. And I'm trying to update that. This is the source. This is a destination. This is a requester. This is an acceptor. Okay. Now you can see pending acceptance. You can accept or reject this peering connection request using the actions menu. You have until the request expired on 28/2023, 16 GMT. That means it is asking the confirmation in the destination. You can see you want to accept the request or not. when I'm trying to send a request from VPC1 to VPC2, it is asking, do you want to accept the request to have a communication between two networks? If you want to reject, you can try to reject. If you want to accept, you can accept. If you want to delete, you can try to delete. This is the permission it is trying to give us an option. You can see when I'm trying to click on accept, this is coming. Are you sure you want to accept this VPC connection request? This is a requester, my first VPC. This is an acceptor, my second VPC. So communication is enabling between 10.0.0/24 to 11.0.0/24. I'm clicking on accept. Okay. This peering connection has been created now. Now what actually I have to do, I need to go to the route tables. Here I need to enable the update for the routes, like what route I have to update. I need to define that. So what I need to do, I need to go to the route table for the first VPC because it need to accept, right? So I need to do the same thing. So I'll go to the route table VPC1. I have launched the server under the public VPC, right? I need to go to the route table here. I'll go to the routes here. So as 10.0.24 is already enabled here, I need to add the route as 11.0.0/24. That is destination VPC address. 11.0.0.0/24. And here it will try to allow the peering connection. See, it is coming up. So I'm having a connection between 10.0 to 11.0. I'm clicking on save changes. So it is done. Okay. As I've already launched the public server, I'm already trying to launch the public server, right? So inside the public server, I'm trying to route the table. I mean, update the route table here to have a communication. So in the same way, in the VPC2 subnet, I'll try to launch a private server. Okay, then I'll try to go with the VPC2. I'll go to the private route table. I'll try to launch a private server inside the VPC2 section, that is 11.0.2. So by default, 11.0.0/24 is there. I'm trying to add a route called 10.0.0. 10. Because I want to have a to and fro communication, right? I'm enabling this communication as well. 0/24. So I'm having a communication between 11.0 to 10.0 in the VPC2 as well. So this is how I'm trying to enabling the route table. Route table is nothing but defining the traffic and defining the directions. So this is done. So I have successfully created everything with this thing. So what I'll try to do, by default, I already launched the public server here, right? So inside the VPC1, I launched the public server. Now I'll try to launch a private server inside the VPC2. Okay. So I'll click on launch instance quick. Private. Server underscore VPC2. Inside the VPC2, I'm trying to launch the private server. Launch this Windows server. I'm trying to select the free tier. So we should be very careful and need to select that options over there because there are network level things, right? I want to make sure that naming convention so that it doesn't having any confusion on blocking the connection. So that's why I'm trying to give a naming conventions properly. Now I need to launch a server inside the VPC2, right? So that is my second VPC. Which server I need to launch? The private server under the private subnet underscore VPC2. That's what I'm trying to do, right? Private server underscore the VPC2. You can see private server. I'm launching that. Create launch instance. Okay. T2.micro is not supported in the US West 2D. That is a problem here. So I've created a subnet. The subnet is not supported to launch the Windows server. That is a problem here. Which region it is launched? It is under US West 2D, right? So it is trying to give me error saying that T2.micro Windows is not supported in your requested availability zone. Maybe another server, maybe let me try to see. Let me try to go with maybe the chargeable one. I have to try now for at least a quick time. It is also free tier. I'll go with SQL standard for now. It is not a free tier. Let's see if it is supported or not. Private submit underscore thing, confirm changes. In your first free tier include blah, blah, blah. T2 micro is unavailable. As a free tier, actually, under the US West region 2D, this T2.micro is not available. That's it is giving an error. So I'm trying to launch without the free tier. So it will charge me small amount, but I'll try to see if it is launching or not. Launch instance. Let's see. No, it is also not supported. Let me try to check for other one. Microsoft Server free tier, confirm changes. And here compare instance types. When this is not supported, this is a problem with the free tier. Actually, it doesn't have full specifications. T2.medium maybe. Free tier. Second VPC. And the other subnet should be the private subnet. Launch them. Okay, it is launched. The private subnet has been launched. It is chargeable, but I recommend you people doesn't try because we have to do it for now. So anyway, I'm in the private server, right? On the public server. You can see this is under the different network, 10.0.0 network. So it makes sense that any other network cannot access inside this remote desktop. Like if I try to access any by default 11.0, 12.0 network, any other network, it cannot be accessible within the server. But as we have enabled the VPC peering connection, this particular 11.0 should be enabled because I've tried to enable the VPC peering, correct? Let us try to check that. Private server, connect. It just giving a 2 to 3 minutes of time. Get password. We need to wait for 2 to 3 minutes now. So by default, no two networks can be enabled, like they can be communicated. So with the help of VPC peering concept, I'm trying to enable the communication over here. With this peering connection, you can see the ExcelR peering connection, it has been active, and requester VPC, my first VPC, acceptor VPC is my second VPC. You can see this. So it is trying to enable a network communication between 10. Network to 11. Network. This is how in the real-time environment where different infrastructures from a different locations, they are actually configuring the high end, the backend level. I'm trying to show you in the form of small project level, but the big companies, it's a kind of a big level network architecture. That's how it is designed in by default. Okay. So once you are trying to completely going through this complete cloud environment, you'll understand more on that. Connect RDP client, get password. decrypt password, copy. Okay. So what is the instance IP address here? The private IP address is, you can see it should be in 11 network. That means 11 network is a different network. There is no chance that it can be loaded inside the 10 dot network, right? So I'm trying to connect that 11 network here. Connect. See, now you are able to connect successfully. Administrator, and the password should be Control C. It's not copying. Copy. Why it is giving error? Not able to copy that. Control C. Paste. No, it's okay. See, I'm able to connect to the 11 network. So the infrastructure in Oregon region, it is trying to connect to a different network in another location or another region or another AWS network, because I try to accept the peering connections, accept. I'm trying to give an explicit permission that 11 network should access the 10 network, so that data migration, data transfer is happening between these two data centers, like means these two networks. That is the concept for, you can see the first one is a 10 dot network here, and the server which I'm trying to open here inside the public server, that is a 11.0 dot network. That means I'm trying to allow the permissions. So for example, if I try to deny the permission over here, it doesn't work out. You can see it is actually loading, right? The server 11.0. If I try to go with the VPC peering connection, if I try to disable this, it won't work. Delete peering connection. Okay. If I try to delete this, it won't work for sure. So you can see successfully it has been loaded. Now, if I try to delete this, delete route tables, delete everything. I'm trying to delete. This has been deleted, right? Now, if I try to load the same server here, .0.0.182, right? It won't. It keeps on loading. It won't connect because I did not have a VPC peering connection enabled. So that's the concept, simple. You can see there is no connection happening between 10.0 to 11.0. So that is the concept for VPering connection. So to have an establish of connection between two different networks, that is the concept for the VPC peering. Okay. I've deleted entire thing. I'll try to switch on the server first because I'll be chargeable first of all. Just want to show you because I have to do a lab session for you. I hope every one of you got an understanding of VPC peering as well, guys. And this is kind of one important high-level concept, and which will be helpful when you're trying to do a lab session when you're in actual class. Okay, this is how it works in the real-time environment in the backend. Like in general, the IT companies, they want to have a communication enabled between two data centers or the two different regions, like a different networks. This is how it will be done. Okay, I hope everyone had a session, enjoyed the session for today. Hope it's interesting as well. Any doubts on the session for today? Any doubts? Well, so I need to go with the cleanup process for now. Even if you do a simple mistake, the server won't connect. That's it. So it depends on the practice how you do for this networking thing. Any doubts? So the VPC, I mean, network module has been completed for today. And I will try to have another module tomorrow, maybe database for tomorrow. Actually, we'll try to have that session as well.
Tomorrow we don't have a session.
Yep, I didn't get that.
Tomorrow we don't have a session because of the occasion of the
that's true, right? Actually, correct. Day after tomorrow, that's true. So that is on 23rd, okay?
Yes, correct.
So everyone, please try to be available on 23rd. And I hope 2 more sessions, right? What is today's session is 7th, right?
It's day 7, 3 more sessions.
3 more sessions, that it should be like Thursday, Friday, and next Monday, correct?
Monday, correct.
Yeah, sure then. So guys, we shall meet day after tomorrow. Then if there are no doubts, please fill the attendance and you can leave the session. Thanks everyone. I appreciate your time.
Guys, don't worry about the certifications. We'll explain all the things in the last session, which is going to happen on upcoming Monday. Yeah, and tomorrow we don't have a session on the occasion of Ugadi and Padwa. So we'll meet you on day after tomorrow, on Thursday. Anything else? If you have any query or question, you can drop in the chat box, or else you can drop out the session.
Yep. Any doubts? If nothing, you are good to see the recorded sessions as well.
Our next session is on Thursday. Okay, thank you so much, all of you. Happy Ugadi, happy Padwa to all of you, and we'll meet you on Thursday. Bala, can I wind up the session?